Hello and welcome to the video lecture on logic distributions. I know I covered part of this in a previous video, but I'm going to revisit this just because I basically left out the three-tier logic distributions, and I want to make sure I cover that. So here we have the two-tier client-server environment. So we've got our server and our client. You can see from this diagram we can have fat clients, where we have a lot of the processing logic, or the processing logic happens on the client. Then we can have the thin client, where the processing logic happens on the server. And then we have a distributed system in a two-tier environment where the processing logic is split between the server and the client. In a three-tier system, or really an n-tier system, the balance is a little different. We basically have machines that are dedicated to performing a particular service. So for instance, in a three-tier architecture, all the storage logic is going to happen on the database server. Then we have an application server which handles all of the processing logic. So instead of the processing logic being split or handled on one end or the other, we now have a new server that handles all of the processing logic. And then we have the client, which deals with nothing but the presentation logic. In an n-tier client-server environment, in this case we're just showing the 4 layers, we're going to have a database server, again handling all of the storage. The application server handles part of the processing logic. Would normally be, if we didn't have the web involved. And then we've got a web server, and the web server would handle a different part of the processing logic. As you can see by what's in the border, the processing logic at the application server layer is TCP/IP. It's application server type stuff, whereas when you get to the web server is handling, is first of all serving web pages via HTTP. It's also using TCP/IP. It might be Windows Server, but typically it's using a lot of APIs. We're going to talk about APIs in another video lecture. And then we've got the client, and in the client in this case would be, for the most part, the vast majority anyway, in the extranet would be web pages based. But you would still have some internal clients, but most of your internal clients are going to go right to the application server instead of using the web server. But even here at Hofstra, our banner system, internal users use an API through a web server to do a lot of our information processing. So again, I just wanted to throw this video lecture out there to make sure we covered both the 2-tier and 3-tier logic distributions. So that is the end of that video lecture.